Warren Buffett is a big reader. He read all the books in the local public library by the time he was 11 years old. And his dad was a stockbroker, so his dad got him in the investment business early on. He was in his dad's brokerage office when he was 7 or 8 years old.
Really?
And that's kind of how he started.
Wow. Huh. What goes on at those shareholder meetings every year? Is it just shareholders, they get to ask questions? Is that kind of like the gist of what goes on?
Yeah, and you usually get about 600 people from foreign countries at this event. So people from Europe and China and everywhere else are asking questions of Warren and Charlie. And all the questions are unrehearsed. The average Fortune 500 company, they usually rehearse the questions and rehearse the answers. With Charlie and Warren, fire away.
Yeah.
Whatever you have. Unfortunately, this year, Warren's going to really miss Charlie Munger. And I'm sure they'll do a big tribute at this year's Berkshire Hathaway event. We've already reserved rooms to attend our 19th consecutive Berkshire Hathaway shareholder meeting, which this year will be without Charlie Munger.
Yeah. Dang it. So is it invite only, or do you just buy tickets for this event?
You need to be a shareholder.
Oh, a Berkshire Hathaway.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then once you're a shareholder, they'll send you an application to attend, and you can buy up to, or not buy, you can order up to 4 passes to go to a Berkshire Hathaway shareholder meeting.
Okay. And what is Berkshire Hathaway? Is it kind of like an S&P 500 where they own a piece of a lot of the big companies?
Berkshire Hathaway is a conglomerate of companies. Warren Buffett owns about 80 companies. Berkshire Hathaway is the umbrella.
Okay.
And the umbrella owns about 80 companies. So they own Fruit of the Loom. They own Berkshire Hathaway Energy. They own Burlington Northern Railroad. They own 6% of Apple. They own See's Candy, and so forth. And then he has, in addition to that, he has a portfolio. I think it's roughly $350 billion of assets in an investment portfolio.
That's crazy.
So yeah, so Warren Buffett. What's interesting about Warren is everybody thinks, well, he probably inherited a lot of money from his father, and his father set up a savings account for him when he was 6 years old with $20. And Warren Buffett, when he was 7 years old, he read the book 1,000 Ways to Make $1,000, and he when he was 8 years old, based on this book, he said, "You know what? I need to get a job." So how many 8-year-old kids would say, "I got to get a job"?
Not many, I don't think.
So he got a job delivering newspapers, but then he would create jobs. And one of the jobs he created was buying a 6-pack of Coke for a quarter back then. Okay. And selling each bottle for a nickel, which means, okay, if you sold each bottle for a nickel, 6 bottles, that means you made a nickel on every 6-pack of Coke. And he would take that nickel and put it in the bank. Huh. So he did that, and he bought his first shares of stock when he was 11 years old.
That's insane. Wow.
And he bought City Service stock with $114 about 90 days after Pearl Harbor.
So he was an entrepreneur almost out of the gate, or super.
He was
super devoted, and
he was, and he always says in his books, he writes, if my father would have been a shoe salesman, I'd have probably sold shoes. But he said I was fortunate enough that my father was in the stockbroker business. So
he was.
Yeah, he was a stockbroker.
Okay.
So Warren Buffett says in our book and in everything he writes, Warren Buffett says the 3 reasons why I have been so fortunate is I had great parents, I had good health, and I was born in the United States of America. So when we look at our book, that's the core of our book. Mm-hmm. So great parents. He said, I won the ovarian lottery. And Warren Buffett not only had great parents, but he had great grandparents. And it's not that they gave him a lot of money, but they gave him direction. When Warren Buffett graduated from high school, he had so many business ventures going that he said, you know what? He says, I don't think I need to go to college. I think I can just make it on my own. And his father says, no, absolutely not. You are going to college, but you can. He had, when he was in high school, he had accumulated $6,000. So that was when you think about it, he had accumulated $6,000 in the early 1940s. That was a lot of money. And his father said, you keep the $6,000, you keep investing that, and I'll pay for your education. So his father sent him to Wharton, and then he went to University of Nebraska, got a degree from University of Nebraska, and then he went to Columbia and studied under Ben Graham and got his MBA at Columbia. And Ben Graham taught him the margin of safety, taught him the art of value investing, and that really kind of gave him his start. And then he came back and started as a stockbroker with his father. And when a couple of years before his father died, he says to his father, Howard, take me out of the will, take me out of the family will. How many people would do that?
Yeah.
He had two sisters and his mother, and he said, whatever portion of the money you are going to give me when you die, give it to my two sisters and my mother, and don't give me anything other than a few pictures and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's what they did. He said, I can make it on my own. So when you think about it, Warren Buffett today is worth $110 billion. He started with $20. But he has been incredibly, and he said he has allowed the magic of compound interest work for him all these years. But he said, in order to do that, it has to take years to do it. So he said investing is like a snowball. The further you roll the snowball down the hill, the bigger it gets. Mm-hmm. He said, so what you need is really wet snow and a really long hill.
That's a good analogy. Yeah, I guess once you get the ball rolling and you need to start somewhere, you're not going to be able to build a snowman if you don't start with a little ball.
Right.
He started with the $20.
He started with $20, and then he first investment was $114, and then when he was in college, he started working for Ben Graham, and Ben Graham was the chairman of Geico. So by the time he was senior in college, he had accumulated that $6,000 that he had became $10,000, and he took 75% of that $10,000 and invested it in Geico stock. So when he was 22 years old, he got married to his wife Susan, and Susan said, "Let's take the $10,000 and buy a house," which is kind of natural for a young couple. He says, "No, let me keep investing this, and let's buy a house down the road." So 6-7 years later, he did. But in 6 or 7 years, investing in Geico stock, that $10,000 grew to $300,000 or $400,000.
Wow!
And he took 10% of that money and bought a house for $31,500, that he still lives in today.
That's crazy.
So Warren Buffett has kept his living expenses really low.
Does he have security and stuff at the house? Do you know? Because I feel like, how could you still live at that house being himself as big as he is today?
He has security all over the block. He has security in the whole block.
Okay.
But I've been by his house. It's an English Tudor house, very unassuming. I'm sure it's been remodeled a dozen times, but he's not one to invest in a lot of fancy houses. He said, "I don't know if I would be any happier if I owned a dozen houses." What he is happy as is he said, "I skip to work," and he loves working at Berkshire Hathaway, which is only 14 blocks from his house.
Huh. Interesting.
And he's done that his whole life.
And he's happy.
Very happy.
That's all that matters. Yeah. Who needs a big house?
Very happy.
Crazy car when you're happy, skipping to work every day.
Yeah. And in the end, he's going to give away 95% of his assets.